What about the violence in our video games?
Violence, the realism that you find in games and movies.
Now video games like Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, and Doom make our children more active participants in simulated violence.
And play video games that are extraordinarily violent, cause the blood pressure to rise and the adrenaline to flow as they play those games and see people killed or be killed.
What is it with the media latching on to anything that's central in pop culture and saying it causes real-world issues, whether it be violence, sexual promiscuity? Media and politicians simply love to push the blame of issues that they should be dealing with onto whatever those lousy young kids are doing these days.
Whatever you say, boomer.
This debate, this assault on pop culture, isn't exactly new either. A trend of older generations for centuries, in the last 50 years the conversations about how blank new thing is rotting the minds of the youth have ramped up in the public eye, particularly with two mediums: movies and video games. And so, since those are the two things that I like to talk about on this channel, well, I thought, why not go back around 50 years and see what the fuck is going on with violent video games. Fucking hell, even saying that phrase just makes me feel like an 80-year-old man.
Whatever you say, boomer.
The debate of video games specifically came around 50 years ago, after the release of the 1976 game Death Racer, around the time of the arcade boom. Death Racer was targeted specifically by concerned parents across the nation due to it supposedly endorsing road rage, awarding points to the player for running over their enemies. Sure, this was a small thing, but it did lay a foundation for an issue that was to blow up in the decades to come. Mortal Kombat. We all love it, right? At least to some extent. I mean, who doesn't want to get the chance to hit a wild fatality that leaves your little brother crying his eyes out? Well, apparently parents in the 90s didn't. After the original game was released, senators felt the need to call a hearing on video game violence, and said hearing resulted in the creation of the Entertainment Software Rating Board, aka ESRB. The 90s and 2000s were a major point in the discussion of whether the media has a responsibility to protect our dear children's eyes. In 1991, for example, the release of the book American Psycho was protested and vilified, to the point where the original publisher of Bret Ellis's Thriller dropped the book 3 months before it released. Despite finding another publisher, after the book's release, Ellis received countless pieces of hate mail and, ironically, death threats, with the New York Times publishing a letter from one Otto Friedrich, who wrote,
"I think that this repulsive novel will contribute to the violence that afflicts our society, and that it will disgrace everyone who tries to profit from it."
The real turning point for conversations of media causing real-world violence came after an American tragedy, when it was widely reported that the shooter at Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999 spent his free time playing violent video games, with Doom being noted in particular. This massacre sparked a whole new wave of anti-video game propaganda, leading to President Bill Clinton tasking the federal government to investigate links between real-world violence and violent games and movies. This shooting also created a mass anti-Marilyn Manson campaign, another scapegoat created by the media, who was labelled responsible for the shooter's actions due to his harsh music.
Some will be so brash to ask if we believe that all who hear Manson tomorrow night will go out and commit violent acts.
I definitely can see why they would pick me, because I think it's easy to throw my face on a TV, because I'm, in the end, sort of a poster boy for fear.
Over the following years, this movement ramped up, and Rockstar in particular became the figurehead for evil video game publishers, turning the youth into mass murderers. With the releases of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, Rockstar faced countless controversies during the entire 2000s, spearheaded by a single crazed lawyer by the name of Jack Thompson. Thompson, a lawyer, an activist, and an absolute dickhead, became the mortal enemy of Rockstar over the next few years, filing five lawsuits over a 3-year span just surrounding the takedown of Grand Theft Auto. In prior years, Jack had attempted takedowns of the hip-hop industry, of Madonna's music videos, and of women being recruited to the army. Yeah, he was a bit of an odd one. Backed by the support of multiple political figures, he would go on to continue to protest games, specifically from Rockstar, Bully, and Manhunt. Manhunt, released by Rockstar in 2003, was another hotbed of controversy, not just being protested, but being completely banned in numerous countries for its level of graphic violence. And in retrospect, it's safe to say that these protests and these bannings had absolutely fuck all effect on Rockstar, to the shock of no one. In the meanwhile, Hillary Clinton was continuing her husband's legacy. No, not that one.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Instead, she was advocating a bill to place more restrictions on the sale of violent video games to minors. Rejected in 2011, it'd only be another year later before the issue sprouted back up, once again with a massacre. Sandy Hook brought so much discourse to the centre of the public eye, from gun control to mental health. But yet again, violent video games, violent movies had to be brought in. To quote NRA head Wayne LaPierre,
"Guns don't kill people. Video games, the media, and Obama's budget bill kill people."
Despite the utter stupidity and the complete bias in that statement, it did bring once again the discussion of media responsibility to the public eye, and over the next decade that would continue, from GTA 5 to Nightcrawler, from Eminem to frog memes, and since then the media have continued to spout the same nonsense. Nonsense that may have just reached its climax last year with the release of Joker. Prior to the release of Todd Phillips' loose adaptation of the infamous comic character, news outlets across the United States, hell, across the world, constantly claimed the film would cause violence, incel attacks, cinema shootings, and an uprising from social outcasts and psychotic or alienated young men. But looking back at countless other movie characters similar to Arthur Fleck, why all of a sudden did this mass media hysteria come up with the release of Joker? Well, the assault on the movie may have come down to fears that there would be a replication of a cinema shooting during 2012 at a screening of The Dark Knight Rises, a case in which the media falsely reported that the shooter claimed to call himself the Joker. But maybe simpler than that, Todd Phillips' Joker was just another media scapegoat. In a time without Manhunt, without Marilyn Manson, without American Psycho or a new Grand Theft Auto, the media needed a new popular thing to latch onto to blame real-world issues on. And in spite of the media firestorm, in spite of many news outlets effectively endorsing a mass shooting at a cinema, they were left to just look like out-of-touch idiots. No mass shootings, no incel uprisings, simply a few Academy Awards and $1 billion box office. Yet again, the media attempted to hold pop culture responsible for real-world issues. And yet again, the media were wrong. Last August, Donald Trump again brought a claim of video games being responsible for the massacres in Texas and Ohio, and he was swiftly lambasted by countless outlets.
This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace.
Despite so many pieces of research showing no link between video games and real-world violence, despite countless stories of connections between the two being debunked, the President of the United States, 2 whole decades after Bill Clinton first looked into it, was still claiming that real-world shootings were caused by violent, grisly video games. And although through this it would appear that in the last 50 years we've made no progress, I'd have to disagree. Sure, the mainstream media continues to blame the entertainment that we love for these real-world issues, but at the same time, the mainstream media continues to die out. Sure, the president may have made a similar claim, but he was quickly denounced by thousands, if not millions, around the world across the internet. By now, it's been made abundantly clear that the media we consume, whether it be books about serial killers, games about gangsters, or films about jokers, they don't cause real-world violence. Artists should have the freedom to express their visions regardless of what a few psychopaths among us may do, and they should by no means be held responsible for the actions of those who partake in such horrific crimes. We wouldn't blame a war movie on war. We wouldn't blame a zombie movie on a pandemic. We wouldn't blame Spider-Man on someone trying to climb up the Empire State Building. So why put the blame of these real-world events on any fiction? Why not instead focus on making a real change within the real world? Go and help a local community. Go and give aid to the mentally ill. But for fuck's sake, do not blame a musician for school children acquiring firearms. And please stop blaming video games on society's issues. Blame Bill Clinton instead.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit like, and if you want to see more content like this, hit subscribe. Now that we're completely locked down, I'm going to be pumping out content, so yeah, stay tuned. Also, comment down below your opinions. Do you think video games cause real world violence? I assume if you're watching this video, then you don't think they do, but just let me know what you think. I do read every single comment, and yeah, thanks again for watching. I've been Found a Scarab, and I'll see you in the next one.